The president, of course, will be cutting his international trip short to come home and address the Eskom power crisis. He was scheduled to address the United Nations General Assembly session this week, and it comes after he met with the US President Joe Biden in Washington on Friday. To try and help us understand what is at stake in terms of the South Africa-America relation, Peter Fabricius, foreign affairs expert, joins us now on the line. Peter, always a pleasure to have you on the show. The visit by Ramaphosa to Washington, of course, follows hot on the heels of the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to South Africa last month. Am I correct in saying we need this relationship a whole lot more than Washington does?
Yeah, you would certainly think so. I mean, if you look at all what I call the shopping list of that Ramaphosa took to the White House, a whole lot of things that he wanted the US to do. But we do also have to acknowledge that that South Africa is important for the US. I mean, they just launched their Africa strategy, and it's to engage Africa and to listen to Africa and so on. And so, I think this was seen very much in that context. Blinken launched that strategy when he was here. And this is like, a step in that direction, very much to invite one of the heads of one of the leading African countries to Washington.
From a diplomatic,
yeah, you're right.
From a diplomatic point of view, of course, part of the test in the relationship has been America's attitude towards countries that are, shall we say, friendly with its enemies.
Yeah, Russia in particular. I mean, look, that's always, in a sense, the relationship between the ANC and the US has always been somewhat qualified by those other issues, not the bilateral relations, which have been generally good, but, South Africa's relationship with whoever, Cuba, etc., and, Venezuela and now Russia. And so I think they're both kind of more or less agreed to disagree, just put that on the side. It doesn't disappear. That it came up in the discussion, and it came up in this particular discussion really in the form of this legislation, which has been, which is going through Congress or stalled in Congress, we're not quite sure, but has passed the House of Representatives, which would sanction African entities that do business with Russia.
Of course, should Biden not sign it, it could still become law by a 2/3 vote in Congress. One of the thoughts, one of the observations I had was Ramaphosa really trying to put some pressure on the U.S. to drop sanctions against Zimbabwe, explaining how that affects really the SADC region, but particularly South Africans in terms of the waves of migrants who come into the country as a result of the pressures there. Did Washington buy that explanation?
No, I don't think they did. I even get the feeling to some degree, and I mean, I may be misreading this, that's a bit of a pro forma thing also for Ramaphosa to do. I mean, it's a SADC position. It's something he's obliged to do, and he does it with, apparent conviction. But I think then they realized that wasn't going to fly. I mean, the US they dropped a few people from their Zimbabwe sanctions list just before. They added one or two. So, that goes on.
The president was scheduled to address the General Assembly and is, of course, cutting that trip short to come and address the energy crisis here in South Africa. Some would look at that and say, what is the importance of those meetings? I mean, one would have thought that the first time since 2019 of an in-person address at the UN would be significant.
Yeah, certainly on a kind of symbolic level. And it does tell you just how serious this Eskom crisis is and how politically damaging it is, I guess, to Ramaphosa. I mean, there is, to my mind, a sort of implication, if you read between the lines, of some sort of sabotage that he suspects. It would be, as you say, the first in-person meeting. Look, it's a ceremonial event in a sense. One doesn't really expect everybody to listen attentively to every point that you make, but the fact that you are addressing and South Africa, for South Africa, multilateralism is a big issue, especially now in the context of the war in Ukraine, where Ramaphosa is calling on Secretary General Antonio Guterres to play a much bigger role there.
$38 billion. That's the shortfall for our just energy transition. We've already got about 8.5 of it secured. Obviously, it's going to be a tight balancing act for us in terms of making sure we don't lose jobs, but obviously transition to more sustainable forms of energy.
Yeah, look, that was a bit of a surprise, that figure, but I guess it does make sense that, that it's a huge project that to try to transition away from all these coal-powered fire stations, which are in any case kicking out one by one. But still, to replace all that energy is a huge task, and then somehow to do it while not hurting coal mining communities and the jobs of coal miners is huge. So I think look, he's not expecting the US to cough up another $38 billion. In fact, Biden offered I think another $45 million on top of the $1 billion that they've already contributed to the 8.5. But yeah, so he was making a point, and Biden said that they would raise it he'd raise it with the G7 partners. So that's another item on the shopping list.
Of course, we're due to host the AGOA summit next year. Would that mean then we'll see a return visit?
I wonder. That's a good point. I'm not sure. Possibly that could be an occasion. I think Biden wants to get here, but he's of course got a huge domestic political challenge there. But he will at least be past the midterms by that stage. Yeah, the AGOA thing is quite interesting too, because we're looking to extend for the US to extend AGOA, and I think there's quite a strong lobby in the US that in fact would like to replace it with a normal reciprocal free trade area agreement. So that could be quite a contentious issue.
We'll keep an eye on all those developments. Appreciate your time, Peter Fabricius, foreign affairs expert, with us on the line, outlining what's at stake for the South Africa-US relationship.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.